Let's see. Can I play this? Hold on.
Welcome to the Common Ground podcast, where stories connect, perspectives collide, and purpose is found in the middle.
Every week, we sit down with unique and inspiring guests that come from all walks of life, people who challenge the status quo, overcome the odds, and live with intentionality.
Whether you're driving to work, on your morning walk, or just looking for that spark to ignite your week, you're in the right place.
Welcome to the Common Ground podcast with your hosts, John Fletcher and Sydney.
Welcome, everybody, to another edition of the Monday Happy Hour. We are glad that you are joining us. With us, our co-host, Sydney, will be with us shortly. She is just running a little late for this, but we thank everybody for coming, and we thank everybody for being here. So we have an episode in store. If you are here, we will be playing a game. We hope that you can comment the answers in the game, in the comment section, so that you can join the game with us. But first, before we get to the game, let me introduce to you our guest today. Our guest today is Mr. Dave Roberts. How you doing, Dave?
Doing very well, John. How are you today?
I'm doing fantastic. If you haven't, if you can share the live on your Facebook, I'm live. That would be greatly. This way, anybody who's your friend can join in the conversations. It's on Sydney's. I shared it. You should be able to share it. For those of you who can see this, you can catch it on YouTube at the Common Ground Project USA. You can catch it on Facebook on Sydney Curtin's stream. I have also shared it. I believe Dave is sharing it now. And finally, we are live on LinkedIn underneath my profile of John Fletcher. So these are the ways that you can see it and you can be a part of the show. Like I said, throughout the whole show, if you have any questions for our guests, questions for the host, you may ask the questions, and you can comment, and we might read your comment online. So tell us a little bit about yourself before we get into the game.
Sure. What seems like a past lifetime ago, John, I was in a addictions counselor and a clinical supervisor in a state-run inpatient facility in upstate New York. I did that for 27 years. I did private practice for another 5 years. So, and I, finally in 2021, I retired totally from doing private practice. I teach now at Utica University. I've been there for 23 years. I teach, among other things, death, dying, and bereavement, care of the human spirit. But in between, while I was working, tragedy hit me. My 18-year-old daughter became sick with cancer. She was diagnosed May 26, 2002. And she, as I call it, transitioned from the physical world to the spiritual world 10 months after giving birth to her first and only child. She transitioned on March 1st, 2003 with hospice services at the age of 18. So at the age of 47 years old, I think, as I mentioned, I think on our podcast, at 47 years old, my midlife crisis was trying to figure out who I was and who I am and what kind of a world I was going to live in moving forward. And that put me on a pretty much midlife journey of reevaluating my priorities, my beliefs, my values. And 7 years after my daughter transitioned, I met through pure serendipity Reverend Patty Farino, an interfaith minister from Long Island, who facilitated a spiritually transformative experience that allowed me to find peace with my daughter's passing and allowed me to begin to believe today in the survival of consciousness after death. That's the very short end version of it, John. And I experienced loss before my daughter. I've experienced loss after my daughter, but her death, her transition, that's the one that that caused me to put all of my beliefs and values and priorities out on the table and change the foundation of who I am, but in many ways better for the challenges that I've had as a result of it.
So, you are a psychology teacher. How did what you teach in psychology and how did psychology play in the role of how you handled that really awful death, and the death of a child?
Well, I don't think any of my prior training totally prepared me for the path I was about to walk. I mean, all the work that I did with clients who had their own set of trauma, my own training, didn't even remotely prepare for learning how to live in a world where my child predeceased me. And that's in the natural order of the universe, that's not supposed to happen. I think what did help me, I think from a psychology standpoint, was one of the things I knew as a therapist was the importance of availing myself of telling clients to avail themselves of really good 12-step support groups, particularly like AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous. So one of the things that I learned to do with the help of my wife, she introduced me to a support group for bereaved parents. And that began to at least gave me some comfort being with individuals who understood the exact path I was walking. So I think that helped me. And I think basically my natural scientific curiosity, I think, took over after I met Patty, and I began to try to explore how spirituality concepts could merge with psychology to increase my understanding of the world. So I think coupled with the scientific curiosity and my understanding of the importance of support groups, I think that part really helped me, I think, move through my grief,
Hmm.
among other things.
And you have a podcast presently, correct?
Correct. It's called the Teaching Journeys Podcast. It's on YouTube and Apple, Spotify, and any place you can get your podcast. And I feature individuals who have transcended their own challenges and are willing to teach the audience my audience who's going through their own challenges, how to transcend those challenges. I've had coaches on, I've had authors on, I've had clinical people on, I've had holistic individuals on who've also been willing to share what they know and what they believe has worked with the clients that they've worked with in the attempt to give my audience more tools. I just dropped, I think it was the 18th or 19th episode today. And it'll be 3 years in March that I've had the podcast running.
Yeah, your episode, which would be episode number 30 for us, nowhere near 200, drops tomorrow at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And if you enjoy getting to know Dave at all, you can definitely check out his episode. His episode comes out 9 a.m. tomorrow on YouTube at the Common Ground Project USA and Spotify and Apple at the Common Ground Podcast. Now, going back to your podcast, was your podcast inspired by your daughter in any way, or?
John, I think it was an outgrowth of the service work that I've done. It's been an extension of that. But actually, who inspired the podcast were two very persistent students I had at Utica University who really encouraged me to take the teachings from the death, dying, and bereavement classroom and put them out in the podcast world. And I resisted the urge to start a podcast, just because I had other stuff going on and it wasn't really the time. But then I met other individuals outside of my students who said, Dave, you really ought to do a podcast. You really ought to do a podcast. So I kind of figured God or the universe or wherever you believe your higher power to be was telling me, Dave, you need to do a podcast. So my son, and I know for some of the Philadelphia Eagles fans out there, this isn't going to be palatable, but hey, I'm about full disclosure. He's got his own Buffalo Bills podcast. And I said, Dan, you need to set me up. I want to do a podcast. So he hooked me up with the hosting platform, recommended a mic, um, recommended an initial editing program, which I've graduated to another one, but he got me set up. First episode I did was with me and Patty, and then from there it just started taking off. I didn't envision being able doing 200 or more episodes, more than 200 episodes in less than 3 years, but it's just the way it's played out right now. With with the number of guests that I've been able to interest in coming onto the program, and with other referrals from other podcasters and other individuals I know, it's kind of had a life of its own. So, and I've been thankful for the response.
Yeah, I think we're going to get started with the game around 6:20 for those watching for the game. But what has been the most rewarding thing from your podcast?
I think, John, it's just meeting just a number of people I've met, and just being grateful and being thankful to be able to have their trust in me enough where they're willing to share their stories, share their journeys. That inspires me every day. And I think, just being able to have that shared platform. And I always look at it as, it's not my podcast, my name's attached to it, but every guest contributor that comes onto the podcast, it becomes a shared platform. It becomes their platform. And my job is to help them facilitate their authentic representation of their story without arguing, without talking over them, and just have, some just really, really good conversations. So, but the most rewarding thing has been meeting just a lot of the great people along the way, and not just individuals who've been guest contributors, but other podcasters like yourself. One of the things that a lot of people might not know about the podcast community, unless you're a part of it, is that in and of itself is its own support network. We share referrals with each other. We connect with each other. It's just really just a great community to be a part of. And I think that's the thing that maybe surprised me the most, is that we're not in isolation. We work, the common ground, no pun intended, or maybe pun intended. The common ground that we have is that we're all trying to make a difference with what we do. We're all trying to make a positive mark in the world.
Hey, Braden, how you doing? Yeah, we're going to be playing a game shortly, Braden. So hang in there, because I definitely want you commenting your answers, because we're going to do, if Sydney doesn't get here by 6:20, we are going to be Dave versus the audience. So we'll see who can win that competition.
Well, is there like a pass fail for this thing, or what? If I totally fail, am I just like am I banned from the Common Ground podcast?
No.
Okay, good. All right, I just want to make sure.
So no, but going back to what you were just saying, it's funny because I was just listening to a Rogan episode. I'm trying to remember who the guest was. It was another comedian who he had on recently, and they were talking about how the comedy scene used to be very cutthroat. Like, nobody wanted to help anybody. It was like everybody was going after competition left and right for stuff. And no problem, Braden. But he said as soon as podcasting came out, it united the comedy community, because they were all hopping on to each other's podcast. They were all supporting each other. So it took a segment that was really divided and were really cutthroat, and it made the whole podcasting world, made it more of a collaborative scene where people were now rooting for people, because you'd go on my podcast, now I'd go on your podcast. And so everybody was, speaking exactly about collaboration and what podcasting can do, and the communities it creates is totally 100% true.
Yep. And I've done a lot of podcast exchanges with other podcasters. They've been on my podcast, I've been on theirs, and that's a nice way. It we can promote each other's podcasts that way too, and just do it, just for the common good. We can do that. So
yeah, so let me explain what the game's going to be called. Each week I try to come up with a unique game designated for our guest. Last week, if you missed it, and one of the things I love about doing this new show on YouTube Live and simulcasting it on Facebook and LinkedIn is that the episodes also get saved, so you can go back on YouTube and watch the Monday Night Live. So if you missed the previous Monday happy hour, you can go back to one of the past ones and watch the full episode and see the different games. Last week, our guest had a book that she entitled Onesome. So we played a game called Onesome, Twosome, Threesome, Foursome. And it was just like guessing what the number of things where we did like original band members for a segment. And then we did different things like H2O, like I'm trying to think of the different stuff we did. Clovers, is it a onesome, a twosome, a threesome, or foursome, and of course people go four for foursome for clover, but actually the 4-leaf clover is the oddity, not the normity. The normity is a 3-leaf clover. So the actual answer is a threesome. But so that was a fun, unique game that we played last week. But this week, in honor of Dave, I was like, so I came up with this game called Famous Daves.
Oh boy.
So what I will do is I will give a clue about a famous Dave, and you have to tell me who that Dave was. So whoever can come up with the answer first, the guest or Mr. Roberts, we will have fun. So let me start with this one. Okay, and I think this one's pretty easy, but this will give you a clue of how the game's going to go. We have entertainment, we have music, we have history, we have sports. So it's a hodgepodge of different Daves. But this Dave named a restaurant after his daughter and appeared in over 800 commercials. Who is that Dave?
Oh, Dave, the guy from Wendy's. But I know his first name is Dave. I forgot his last name, but I know it's a guy from Wendy's.
Let's see. I'm gonna give the audience a second to see if they can come up with it.
Dave. Oh God, I know his last name's right on the tip of my tongue, but it's the owner of
Two first names. I'll give you that clue.
Dave. Oh, damn. Yeah, it's right on the tip of my tongue. But I know it's a guy from Wendy's.
Dave Thomas.
That's right. Yep, Dave Thomas.
And that's actually how I came up with that was the no clue from Braden. Wow. Ah, there we go. We got some Dave Thomases in there. Heath and Heath got it. Yes. So
do I get like half credit for that one since I know it's the guy from Wendy's? Do I get like a half a point?
You get a half a point.
Perfect.
Half a point. All right. So this Dave is a comedian who famously walked away from a $50 million contract for his namesake sketch show on Comedy Central.
The only Dave I could think of is Dave Chappelle.
That is correct. Dave Chappelle. Let's see if the audience came up with it, because I know sometimes they're a little bit behind the little delay, but let's see if they came up with Dave Chappelle also. Anybody? And what I'll do is I'll make you wait 5 seconds before you answer. Dave Chappelle. Okay, Braden knew Dave Chappelle. All right, awesome. So 500 points to the both of you.
Perfect.
This Dave, he is the gap-toothed king of late night who spent 33 years hosting and pioneered the top 10 list. Don't say it right away. Let's give the audience let's give the audience a shot at this one first. I'll tell you what, we'll go back and forth. I typed it before you finished the sentence.
Yeah.
All right, so tell us this. This one's for the audience. He is the gap-toothed king of late night who spent 33 years hosting and pioneered the top 10 list. Which Dave is that? We'll give them a second, and then I'll give you a chance to answer it.
Okay.
Let's see if any of them know which Dave. One more time, he is the gap-toothed king of late night who spent 33 years hosting and pioneered the top 10 list. Actually, I believe he was in the running for, or he won when Jimmy Carson left.
Johnny
Right?
Carson, yeah.
Did he take over to Carson, or no?
He was in
Leno took over for Carson,
Jay
right?
Leno, yep. Yeah, Jay Leno took over. I think that the guy you meant that Dave was in the running, but
Right.
Yeah.
It was between Carson. It was between Jay Leno and this Dave.
yep.
All right, I'm not seeing it. So who is this Dave?
It's got to be Dave Letterman.
That is Dave Letterman. That is correct. All right, for some of your younger folks, this Dave, famous for Cut It Out. This actor and comedian played the woodchuck-loving Uncle Joey on Full House.
Oh, God, Dave. Oh, I know who it is. I can picture him. I don't know his last name, but I can picture him.
Yeah, David. David is a Dave. It's who that Dave. David is a David's work. There are some Davids on this, so I will say everyone is either a Dave or a David. Okay.
I know what he looks like. But I can't picture his last name. But I know who it is.
Just giving them one second to see if they have an answer. Oh, maybe.
I think
Cut it out. Cut it out. That was his famous phrase. This actor and comedian played the woodchuck-loving Uncle Joey on Full House.
I think
He is Canadian, I believe.
yes, he is Canadian.
Yes, Braden, that is correct. Dave Collier.
Yeah, that's. I just thought of that. Not because Braden said it, but that was what I was thinking was Dave Collier. But I couldn't pronounce his last name.
All right. So this one may be for some older folks. He was the most watched man on TV thanks to Knight Rider and Baywatch.
Oh,
I don't know if this is before your time.
no, I got it.
You got it?
Yeah, I got it. I know it is.
Who is it?
David Hasselhoff.
That is correct. Ding, ding, ding. David Hasselhoff. Yes.
Yeah, Knight Rider was one of my favorite shows.
Yes.
I like the car though. I mean, the car was the
Kit,
best actor out of all of them.
Kit was definitely.
Yeah.
All right. This one, definitely, if you are a Marvel fan, you will know this, Dave. Before becoming Drax the Destroyer in the MCU, he was known as the Animal in WWE. Do you know your wrestling or Marvel?
No, that's out of my league. That one I'll pass to the audience.
Before becoming Drax the Destroyer in the MCU, and the movie in the MCU he was in was what was it? I love it's my favorite Marvel movies. Somebody help me out here. Why can't I think of the name all of a sudden? I had it too. David Batista. That is correct. He was known for the animal in WWE. What's the Marvel movie? That he's in. What's the Marvel series? I love the Marvel. It's the best. It's the best. One of the best Marvel movies that there is. Well, let's move on to this Guardians of the Galaxy. Thank you. Yes, what a great movie. What a great set of movies. This Dave appeared alongside Chris Farley in the movie Tommy Boy. Tommy Boy is one of my favorite commies of all times. He's appeared along a lot of movies, I think, with Chris Farley, but I threw in the Tommy Boy because that's one of my favorite comedy movies. And what I'm trying to think of. David Spade. Yes,
David Spade. Yep.
Nice one, Sarah. 500 points to you. All right, we're going to move over to the music. These are has to do with music. This Dave, he is the nicest man in rock who drummed for Nirvana before becoming the front man for the Foo Fighters. Which Dave is that?
I know it.
You know it. Okay. Hold on. Let's give the audience. Let's see if they know their music. He was a drummer for Nirvana before becoming the frontman of the Foo Fighters. And if you're watching on Facebook, please share the Facebook Live. That would be great, as we're having some fun with this game.
I know who it is.
I'll give 30 more seconds because I know they're catching up and typing at the same time.
Yep.
Yes. Is that the answer you were going to give?
Dave Grohl. Yep.
Yeah, I figured you knew. Yes. 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 All right. The next one. This South African born singer leads a namesake band famous for its jam bam style and its hits like Crash Into Me.
Oh, I know this one. I know it is.
Again, the South African born singer leads a namesake band famous for its jam band style and its hits like Crash Into Me.
Yep. I know this one.
Everybody loves to imitate his voice.
Yep. He's got a hell of a voice.
He does.
Got a hell of a voice.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes, Heath.
Yep, Pete's got it. That's what I was going to say to Dave Matthews.
Yes. All right. For now, I'll give you a hint. This is a little more classic, but my ex-wife loved this guy. This Starman was a musical chameleon known for his alter egos like Ziggy Stardust and the Thin White Duke. And I believe he was also in the movie that I could not stand that my wife loved.
Yep, I know who it is.
I forget what the movie's name was. Do you remember what the movie he was in?
No, I don't. I know he died several years ago, and that sends some shockwaves through the music world. But I know who you're talking about. The minute you said Starman, that I knew it.
Yeah, I remember it had what was the girl in it?
I never saw him in the movies.
We're in the middle of our game.
Okay, thank God. Oh gosh.
So this famous Dave, just to give you, we're letting the audience play too, so they've been doing awesome. This Dave this Starman was a musical chameleon known for his alter egos like Ziggy Stardust and the Thin White Duke. He was also in a movie that my ex-wife loved and I couldn't stand. It was like one of those.
David Bowie.
David Bowie is correct.
Yeah, that's what it is.
What was the movie that he was in?
Shoot. Sydney showed up. Braden, leave me alone. Today's been a nightmare. I'm coping. Happy to see you, Dave.
Happy to see you too, Sydney.
Saying that Dave and Danielle have made my day. I cannot tolerate any more stimulus. Like, I am ADHD stimulus overload. How I got David Bowie is beyond me, to be honest with you.
I knew that when he said Starman and then Ziggy Stardust. Just the rise and fall of Ziggy Stardust was a classic album.
So don't give your answers out right away, Sydney, because we're trying to let the audience see if they can get it too.
Got it. Okay, sounds good. We got it.
So this Dave, and this ends our music ones, but this Dave is a guitarist for Jane's Addiction, and he was the host of Ink Master.
Oh, Jane's Addiction.
Oh, the guy with the long hair.
Yeah.
Was that who it is?
I believe it. Yeah, I believe it. Yeah, he has long hair.
Yeah, I never listened to Jane's Addiction, but I know the guitarist you're talking about.
Guys, don't cheat is the thing, because that actually, I love that show. I've got so many tattoos, and I know exactly.
Ink Master. I love that movie. I love that show. I love that show.
He's such a good guitarist too. Nobody cheat. Put your answer in the comments. I know the answer already. I've got that one.
Yeah, and that's what Dave's been doing. Dave will be like, I know this one, and then like they'll get Grohl and they'll get Dave Matthews and
yes,
Dave Navarro. That's right.
Yeah,
500
Dave
points
Navarro,
to Braden.
right.
Braden, I want
Good.
proof of your search history. I want screenshots.
Yep.
Dave
And
Navarro.
I could say I've been not searching. All the answers I've come up with, right or wrong, are my own.
So
And ours truly Dave Roberts, which
Yes.
of course why we named the game this, but I love that.
So just to give you a clue on what famous Daves we've done Dave Chappelle, we've done David Letterman, we've done Dave Coulier,
Okay.
David Hasselhoff, Dave Bautista, David Spade, Dave Grohl, Dave Matthew Band, David Bowie, Dave Navarro.
There's a couple of those that I didn't know. I knew most of them, but not all of them.
Didn't Dave Navarro, did he play for the Red Hot Chili Peppers, or am I hallucinating?
Hallucinating.
I'm hallucinating. Why did I think he played? He
No,
didn't.
I'm just, it was the way, it was that word choice. I don't know if that's, I don't know.
I
I
don't
don't know. I thought, for some reason, I thought he played with the Red Hot Chili Peppers. I might be wrong.
he may have had a stint there. I don't know.
Yeah, we can figure it out.
So this Dave is history. So I'm going to give you that clue. He is the king of the wild frontier, was a Tennessee congressman, and who famously died at the Alamo.
Oh, God, that's an easy one. You didn't need it. That's an easy one. God, I know that one already.
I apologize. I wasn't listening. Can you one more time? I'm coping.
This Dave was the king of the wild frontier, was a Tennessee congressman who famously died at the Alamo.
Yeah, I know it is.
And there's a song.
Yeah. Okay. I got it, but my lips are sealed. We'll give the
That's
audience-
right. That's right,
Oh.
Heath. 500 points to you, Davy Crockett.
That's the answer I had too.
That's so annoying that he of all people is the one that got that. I hate you.
He got a couple. He's got a couple.
Of course he did. I was arguing with, I was starting World War III with my insurance company.
Wow, this I did not know. I know this, Dave. And this is sports. The last two are sports.
All right.
This Dave is a true legend. He is the only athlete ever drafted by the MLB, NBA, ABA, and the NFL.
Wait, drafted by the NBA, NFL, and what was the fourth one?
MLB, NBA, ABA, and the NFL.
Oh, shoot. Okay.
So baseball, football, and both basketball leagues. And that should give you a time frame of when that was while the ABA was still around. So that tells you you're talking there you go. Heath on fire.
Dude, he's with his daughter. don't text and drive. I'll literally fight you. Like, I don't know what you're doing right now, but I just called you. And if you're driving still, we got beef.
Dave Winfield, that makes sense.
Dave Winfield. Yes. And our final answer for this game. This Dave is a global soccer icon, and Posh husband made the number 7 jersey legendary for Manchester United.
I don't know.
There's a movie that doesn't feature him that goes bend it like. But
Oh, I know it is. Yep,
I
I know
just
it is.
gave you the clue.
Gave me
that
the clue. Yep, I just know it is.
David Beckham. That is correct.
Yep.
Well, Posh should have been a clue because she was a Spice Girl and he was married to a Spice Girl.
Yep. He also made an appearance in Modern Family. That much I do remember.
Okay.
Yeah, he made an appearance there as well too, as an
But
actor.
if you like the games, we do play games every week with our guests as a fun, cool thing to do on our Monday happy hours. We try to make this one not like our podcast, a little more lively, a little more fun. Really try to get to know our guests and have a little fun with them. So make sure every Monday you're here 6. We'll play a small game. You guys are welcome to be a part of the games. We love having you guys participate in the games, and any questions you have for the guests or the hosts or comments for the rest of the show, please, we will read some of them on air. We thank you for playing the game. And I don't know. I think the comment sections won that. I think it was like 55,000 to 49,000. It was real close, guys.
Yeah, at least I made a good accounting of myself, so I won't be permanently banned from the Common Ground podcast.
No, not a chance.
Oh, cool.
Again, if you like Dave, his episode comes out tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. You can catch it on the Common Ground Project USA on YouTube and the Common Ground podcast on Spotify or Apple Podcasts.
And I'll make sure to share it on my pages as well too.
So if you missed it, if you showed up during the game, we started by talking a little bit and getting to know Dave a little bit. We talked a little bit about his background. We talked a little bit about his podcast. And his episode is on that comes out tomorrow is on his spiritual transformation. We can talk more about that, or if there's a different way you guys want to finish out this episode, I'm more than willing to go whatever direction.
Yeah, I'm just gonna go with the flow. Whatever you guys want to do.
All right. What are our topic options? Heath is helping me, so he's out for a second. We got Sarah and Brayden. Did we stream through LinkedIn this week?
Yes.
Nice.
So all 3 are live. We've definitely gotten a bunch of participation from Facebook and YouTube, so that's good.
I think you're the only person that has my Facebook password.
And I don't even know it. I set it up the first time, and I didn't need it this
your
time.
computer just remembered it. Good.
It's just like, yeah, no. Otherwise, I would have had to call you and be like, I need your password to. I remember part of what it's supposed to be, but don't ask me to spell it. I'd have to look it up. Like, I know what it is, but
shoot.
And that sounds horrible coming from your co-host who knows you so well.
You're not my co-host. We're just both hosts. Look at your title.
Yeah.
Or your name. It's
Yeah.
right
Well,
Host.
your partner host.
Yeah.
Host. Oh boy.
So let's go this way. So we were talking we talking to your podcast about your spiritual transformation. How did your, trying to think of a nice, good opening question to start it off. Unless you got one, Sydney.
Without ice breaking the podcast thing, this is the hard part about the Monday happy hours, that like we don't want to give away all of the tea
Right.
for the episode, but you have had some major life circumstances that have led you to the spiritual awakening that you talk about on our podcast. What is it? We can like, this part wasn't something that we really, because it doesn't get into the tea until about 30 minutes into the episode. What was it that began that spiritual awakening for you?
Well, I think it was probably in some ways, Sydney, a gradual process. I availed myself early in grief of support groups. I was around individuals probably about, let's say, the 5 to 7 year mark, who had, very different perspectives, were very vested in spirituality, very individualized perspectives of spirituality. I got exposed to that, but I had difficulty, I think, trying to figure out where all this fit in with my psychology-based background. Sure. And then, and I mentioned this earlier on the podcast, the turning point was through pure serendipity. I met an interfaith minister who took my awareness to the next level and, made me realize that we can continue the bonds with our loved ones, even though they're in spirit. We can maintain that relationship and remember them, hold them in our hearts, connect with their energy if we so choose, as a way to move through grief. And I know, as I mentioned on the podcast, this is what I've learned to believe, but I've respected the way everybody else sees the world, in terms of how they view spirituality and how they, and how they view religion. I mean, for me, I can learn from all of it. So when I talk to individuals about my transformation, it's like I'm passionate about it, but never do I want to imply to anybody that you have to believe the way I have to believe. That's something that I don't have the right to ask or demand. It's just something, here's my perspective. This is what it did for me. Maybe listening to that will spur you on to create greater awareness for yourself based on your own unique perspective. And if I can do that, I feel like I've made an impact for that moment in time.
So here's a cool angle, because we didn't talk much about this at all on the podcast. You were in a bereavement support group to help you go through that. And you had this spiritual transformation that really, I think, gave you the peace that you were missing. Mm-hmm. So what would you say to bereavement groups? Is there something that they could do that could help bring that peace that you weren't getting there, that you had to find in spiritual? Or is that something that's just not even possible?
I think, when you take a look at the term spirituality, it's so individualized. Even taking a walk out in nature could be a spiritual experience. Spending time in nature can create some different awareness. So what I tell individuals is that embrace perspectives that are going to make sense for you, that are going to align with your belief system, that are going to complement your belief system, no matter what those perspectives are. My belief, as long as what they're embracing is not hurting themselves or somebody else, if it works for them, why not? And so it's basically find what makes sense for you, incorporate that into your existing belief system, and move forward and try to reestablish yourself with meaning in this lifetime. And whatever path that may be, every path works. There's no one way to grieve. There's no one way to work through grief. It's all individualized. And I think I support individuals in finding that perspective. But here's the other thing. What I would also love is to hear I love to hear other people's perspectives because I can learn from that. So it's something that encourage that and then teach me in the process. I may not align with everything, and I don't expect anybody's going to align with everything I've been through, but we can find some common ground in terms of the similarities that we share. And but we can't do that if we're not listening to each other.
Yeah. What would you say to somebody that says that truth is objective rather than subjective?
That's a good question. First, I wouldn't try to dispute that with them. But because there is objective data and there's subjective interpretation. But one of the things I would say to an individual where that gets challenged, and I'm going to kind of take this from a guy by the name of Bruce Grayson, who did a lot of work with near-death experiences. And he's a scientist. So he came from a family, his parents were two chemists. So you can't get any more science-based than that. But he said if there's something that occurs that there isn't a scientific explanation for it, your job as a scientist is to find a scientific explanation for it. If there isn't a scientific explanation, can you accept the fact that it was real even though there isn't a scientific basis for it? I mean, sometimes what I tell individuals is that sometimes there's just things that you can't explain, but that we know are real. And sometimes we just need to be in awe of the magic in the universe, that there are certain things that do happen that defy objective data. So, and it's just a matter of don't stray from that. I believe in the power of science, but I also believe in other phenomena that can complement science or maybe explain phenomenon that doesn't have a scientific explanation, but yet we know it's real. And how I can determine that, and this goes into listening again. If somebody came to me, Sydney, and said that I saw a cardinal, the cardinal is a universal symbol for many of a sign from their loved one, I would ask them about the experience. What were you thinking about at that particular time? Were you thinking of your loved one? How did that make you feel having the experience? What can you learn from that experience that could help you through grief? So this way you can put some type of kind of objectivity, or by asking those specific questions, you can lend some objectivity to what could be a subjective experience. Because if that has meaning for the individual, and I can see that, then for me, that was real for that individual, and I have to trust that. So that's kind of how I would reconcile the two.
Let me fight back on that a little bit.
Oh, we don't have to fight, man. You beat me in a fight. I'm a pacifist, man.
I mean, as far as debate, because let me push back. Well, let me push back a little bit on that, because let's take this whole thing about self-identifying what you are, right? And I know this is extreme cases, but like the whole thing, like if somebody wants to be called a cat, then we have to call them a cat. Aren't we, if we're pouring into that delusion of they want to identify as a cat, if where's the truth in that? Like, I get what you're saying. Most things are logical, but if society goes, if somebody wants to identify as a cat, then we need to call them a cat. And it's like, well, isn't there a place where even that subjective truth is so far wide that you got to be like, listen, you got to live in some kind of reality here. You're not a cat,
Yeah, I mean, as a clinician, I have to ethically respect the right of the client to self-determine. So I would have to respect that as a clinician. But let me say something else. Let me go back to that, okay? We're talking about the subjectivity. And you mentioned, I think earlier, something about we buy into that delusion. Here's the other thing. If somebody is saying that they had a sign from their loved one, and let's say there's been a history of breaks from reality, psychotic breaks, I do have to take that into account to determine the legitimacy of that. You know, so I mean, basically, I mean, as far as what people want to be called, I mean, again, as a clinician, if I'm working in a clinical setting, I have to respect that client's right ethically to self-determine, even though I may not agree with it, but ethically I need to do that. What I do in my personal life is another story, however. So that's kind of like the delineation I make. So I don't know if I've answered the question. I'm not trying to, but basically
No,
that's
no.
the
But
determination I can make.
right.
Yeah.
So as a clinician, how is that beneficial to your client though? That you allow them to do that?
Well, it's empowerment. Now, again, if they have a serious psychotic delusion that they are a cat, okay, then what I can't do, John, is I can't break down their version of reality suddenly because that's going to put them in crisis. It could compromise me, physically. So what I have to do is gradually show them the difference between what is real and what isn't real.
Okay, that's fair. So you're like basing it based on the client's profile, right? You can't
absolutely,
but like
yeah.
just so we can establish common ground for the sake of this. Do you believe that anybody can be a cat? If we can agree on that foundation, then we can talk about what it means to break it down if somebody's on the brink of psychosis. But my argument would be that anybody identifying as a cat is already on the brink of psychosis. So where do we
well, I think the thing is that if they are, I mean, as a clinician, it's my job to assess in terms of whether or not they're oriented to reality. If they come and see me and say that they're a cat, then I got to determine, well, how realistic is that? And it isn't
oriented around reality if we're saying that we're a cat, though.
But for them, Sydney, that's their version of reality. So I have to work with that.
Psychosis, though, if we're talking about some just very, I mean this literally, I'm just a very genuine question. If somebody came up to me and greeted me with meows, then I would have some serious clinical concern.
Yeah, me too. Me too. That would put me into a place where I would have to do some crisis intervention and assessment real quickly.
Let me further that, though. So if somebody comes up to me and says that they identify as a cat, and instead of greeting me with what I just described, they're instead wearing ears and a tail, as we commonly see in today's society, my issue then becomes identity crisis, which is equal crisis on a more realistic level.
Yeah, and it may not necessarily be psychotic, but it's an identity crisis, and that's something that you deal with differently, I think.
So how do we then I agree. We're talking about identity crisis. So then how do we take that fact, that knowledge as clinicians, somebody with your clinical background, my educational background, and bring that back to the realm of reality? How do we heal that identity crisis or help ground that identity crisis without the same thing that you were talking about? In one case, we're talking about full psychosis if we break these walls down. Mm-hmm. In one case, we're talking about, okay, there's something clinically on a very real level going on here that we want to help bring back to ground level. Two different approaches.
Yep. If it's an identity crisis, then it's going to require probably taking a deep dive into early childhood trauma, into a variety of different things to really get at the host of that. There could be a variety of different reasons for it, Sydney, and I couldn't give you this wouldn't be a quick fix. Something like that would have had to have been, to me, related to some type of childhood trauma. So I would see what occurred that caused a crisis of identity for them to stray to that level, and then try to work on, it from there. Maybe it's challenging some of the beliefs that they had that believed that maybe they weren't worthy enough to be a human and they were more worthy to identify as a cat. And it would take a lot of deep work, a lot of deep commitment from the client to dispute those beliefs. And it would be a gradual process, but we could get them there as long as that person was engaged. And
sorry.
So, I mean, for me, that would be where I would kind of start. Usually identity crisis comes from usually in many cases, from a lot of deep-seated childhood trauma that caused
that.
Yeah. So you said that it wouldn't be a quick fix. Do you think they got there quickly? And if they didn't get there quickly, what steps could have prevented them from getting there?
This is the difference between our Monday happy hour and normal podcasts, is the fact that I'm walking around my house. Continue.
You can walk around. You can walk around your house. You can walk outside. Although I wouldn't walk outside my house because of the fact
You're
that.
outside right now.
John, what was the question again? I'm sorry. Sydney distracted me while
I did.
walking.
My fault.
No problem. I said that you said that it wouldn't be a quick fix. I said, well, was it a quick, journey to where they got to? And if it wasn't a quick journey, was there anything that could have stopped that
Mhm.
going into that identity crisis?
Yeah, it was, sometimes it could have been something that happened quickly to where they kind of felt that they identified as a cat. The other thing that I would need to take a look at is what messages were they getting that reinforced their belief that they were a cat. That's the other part of that. Okay, is that, I mean, you look at that, but a lot of times negative attention, even if somebody starts laughing at the fact that, well, you're a cat, ha ha ha, they might stick to that because that's the only attention that they ever got.
Well, I was going to say, wouldn't we call that? I mean, negative attention in the sense that attention is not a form of productive attention or
No.
attention that affirms their identity. But isn't that what society is doing to people? I mean, we're seeing this whole movement of people that are affirming this false sense of identity. I mean, we could take this. I mean, we're talking about an extreme example right now. We're talking about a cat. Even that isn't actually extreme based on what we're experiencing in society. I want to know what non-binary means. I mean, I could identify as my air fryer, and it wouldn't matter. If we're talking about non-binary, it means that I don't identify. I am fluid. What does that mean? It means that I didn't fit in anywhere, so I am looking to fit in everywhere. Anywhere that you will accept me or that I will be accepted. This is from my 8 years in psychology.
Mm-hmm. Or people might truly identify as non-binary.
I don't, and that's where I don't necessarily feel I think that non-binary right now is a term that people use to say like not male or female per se, but also what I've seen with the people that I deal with has been that I don't actually know what I am. And so therefore I'm looking for a label to define my lack of self-identity. That's where I get hung up with the term non-binary as somebody that also practices.
Yeah.
I think also, though, just to go to her point, is that statistically speaking, if you look at the 4 years, especially of Biden, where like the whole trans movement was pushed, there was an increase in everybody identifying as stuff, and when we stopped pushing it, the thing decreased pretty rapidly too. And I'm not saying that people, that this whole thing is made up, that there aren't people who don't identify as trans or whatever. What I'm saying is it became a fad. And I'm saying is that because people were promoting this different kind of identity crises, people were like, well, I want to join the movement. I want to feel like I'm a part of something. And it got to a point where we started pushing stuff on kids and different stuff, and that's where it gets really dangerous.
Well, for me, you talk about sex reassignment surgery. Okay. And I've talked to an individual who's been through sex reassignment surgery. And a person shouldn't be diagnosed with gender dysphoria, or however you want to look at it, until they're at least minimally adult age at 18. And even that may be too young. But he said this from a standpoint of saying, and this is a guy who went through the whole process. He went through therapy. He went through a variety of different things to ensure. One of the things that I don't agree with is pushing kids in that direction because of the fact that, if they go through with that because they're getting parental pressure, they become an adult and they're looking, what the hell did I just do? I didn't want to do this. So I think basically, basically any type of decision that an individual would make, as far as, let's say, something like sex reassignment surgery, and they shouldn't even be diagnosed with gender dysphoria issues until they're at least 18. And I got this from a clinical psychologist who's worked a lot in this area with them. So, but I would agree with that point. I wouldn't want to push my kids in that area. just because kids experiment, they experiment. Boys will play with dolls, girls will play with trucks. It doesn't mean they're aligned one way or another. It just means they're curious about their world, So, I mean, that's where I think common sense kind of has to play into that. And it's a lot of times it doesn't. And a lot of times it doesn't.
And it's
Mm.
driven by money, because the pharmaceutical companies to me were behind this, because as soon as they get you on puberty blocking drugs, that's a lifelong customer. Like, you can't get off of that. And if
No.
you do get off of that, you've done damage to your body that is irreparable. And this was my issue with kids. It's not like, listen, I'm more of a, you do what you want to do I'm not going to stand in your way. I don't believe you should, but that's not my choice. That's your choice. But to put this in the kids and to put things like, dude, when I was a kid, I wanted to be a fireman. I don't want to be a fireman.
Yeah.
You could have asked me 2 days later, did I want to be a zookeeper? I would have said, yeah, I want to be a zookeeper, because, that's what kids do. I didn't know. That's why we have legal age of voting, legal age of alcohol, cigarettes, all this kind of stuff.
All different age. Why can you vote but not drink at 18? Both should be 21. Actually, both should be by the development of the prefrontal cortex.
Well, yeah. I mean, and sometimes the prefrontal cortex is, people are different. They develop at different paces anyway. So, and
even more reason to push that out.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, you want to talk about diagnosing kids. I can go on and on and on about kids that have been put on medication, shouldn't be on medication. There's a story I read about in early 2010, where there's a clinic in Boston that was diagnosing 2-year-olds with bipolar disorder. And I'm thinking to myself, have you ever seen the freaking Terrible Twos? Whenever you see a 2-year-old kid that didn't have mood swings, I mean, with kids, you got to rule in and rule out developmental stages before you really. And I believe most medications, and I would agree with you, pharmaceuticals are in it to make money. I mean, you look at the commercials. There's commercials every other for any type of medication. But the bottom line is that with kids, you got to rule in and rule out developmental phases before you really make any type of diagnosis. And I was talking to one therapist, this was years ago, that said children shouldn't be put on any type of medication unless they are a danger to themselves, they're violent, they're self-biting, they're violent towards others, and then and only then you put them on medication, wean them off the medication, and help them build sober coping skills. Medication can manage symptoms, John and Sydney, but it doesn't change behavior, and the side effects for a lot of times are very debilitating, particularly to kids who are growing cognitively and physically. That's just my own take on it. Anybody else can have a different opinion for it, but I think medications in most cases do more harm to kids than they do benefit.
Can I want to ask you something totally, I agree. I'm with you on medications do more harm than they do good at that developmental age specifically. I mean, my dad put me on this hamster wheel of medication when my mom took her life because he didn't know any better. So in his defense, like that was his knee-jerk reaction. Like, I don't know what to do. She's the oldest. She's going to need the most support. Here's some medication. Here's a counselor. Here's our new routine. And that's kind of like what I fell into. And I still blame that on ignorance of the parent. But one of the things that I want to hone in on is this idea of your opinion versus fact, because I respect the fact that you're giving space for other information. What I want to identify is, where do we as individuals draw the line on this is what's true? Because there's got to be some truth that society bases truth on. I understand that we bleed out, hey, Danielle, how's it going? I understand that we bleed out and we like maybe we come to a crossing point where it's like, hey, we agree on we got to 50% and then we broke in the road when it came to this topic on this topic. I understand that there's olive branches within the olive branches is what I'm saying, but you said something really valuable there that you don't support necessarily medicating children at this developmental age, that we have to support their development in order to allow the brain to develop, decide what these individuals need, and then support from there. So my question to you is, where's that line in terms of you followed that statement, which I felt and feel is very wise, that I don't think a lot of people like yourself, like myself, have the educational background to say, hey, I don't recommend medicating a child this young, and here's why. But then you followed that with, that's just my opinion. So my question to you is like, where does your educational background, the life experience that you have, where do we draw that line and say, hey, based on my life experience, my educational experience, what I'm telling you is this is the proof that we have that this is not what's in the best interest of your child.
Yeah, basically, I think in my opinion, I try to leave space for everybody else's to challenge that if they want to. And I guess that's what I meant by that. But for me, just from my own experience, reading about, in the case in Boston, where there was a doctor that prescribed a bunch of mood stabilizing and anti-anxiety medications. It's a long story, to a 2-year-old who had bipolar disorder, supposedly.
Yeah.
Okay. The child died of an overdose because the parents gave them too much. Here's what happened, Sydney. Okay. And this is where I don't think, again, I would go with, from my own experience, what I've seen, what I've read, and also from talking to this therapist.
Yeah, absolutely.
That basically children shouldn't be medicated unless it's short term, they're a danger to themselves or somebody else, and then they should be weaned off the medication, given build coping skills so that takes the place of the medication. I think children should be medicated, to me, only under those circumstances. I think beyond that, if you're not looking at developmental cycles or phases, you got to rule that in and rule that out before you do anything. But that's, under any circumstances, I think we have to rule in development. Here's the other thing, that I also believe that in this case where this parent gave more medication to calm the children down, and that child died, and by the way, both parents were indicted for murder. The psychiatrist was suspended for a year and then allowed to practice again. My question would have been, the psychiatrist should have been an accomplice, should have been also convicted.
Absolutely.
because of the irresponsibility. But here's the thing, and I've said this to my students, here's another thing that I believe in my heart, is that just because we marry the love of our life doesn't make us good parents.
Yeah.
And I think that my question would be, if this child is being medicated by their parents, what type of parenting skills have we not given them? If we can do that, I think we teach them how to manage their children's developmental phases. I think that would cut out the need for them going to a psychiatrist to have their child evaluated. You go to a psychiatrist, they're going to put you on medication. That's what they do. There's no other. I have found very few psychiatrists who are interested in doing clinical work before they and use medication as a last resort. It's always a first resort. So that's my fact in terms, I don't believe medication should be used, and only used in limited circumstances for a child, and limited and temporary.
So I want to say, going back a little bit, I know we got off on a little tangent on something, but to come back to the heart of what we were talking about, and I think what Sydney was just bringing us back to is, and my whole point about the whole cat thing wasn't to go us on a tangent. It was to say that because we try to not say what truth is and try to allow for us not to offend people, we allow stuff like cat and stuff to perpetrate our kids and infiltrate them. And so in a certain way, we do more harm. by not just saying what's true and what isn't true from the get-go. And that was my point with the whole cat thing. It wasn't to get off in this tattoo. It was that by us not saying that, listen, you really can't identify. I mean, you're not a cat. You're not a cat. By us allowing for that possibility, because we're so afraid to offend people. And listen, I've even done it where in this Monday happy hour, where I've tried not to offend people. But we do that. We become such a nation that we're so afraid to offend that we now allow stuff that shouldn't be taken seriously to become issues in people's lives because we just haven't stood up for truth to begin with. And I think that goes back to the whole objective, subjective. By allowing subjectiveness to perpetrate a lot, it takes away from what's objectively true.
Yeah.
I want to read our comment from our guest because we'll have room to comment on this within. And I want to rewind even further. So Danielle says, okay, so the teachers and doctors told me I needed to put my son on ADHD medication. Both me and my son have it pretty bad. Now that he's on it, he's doing amazing in school and can stay focused, when before he absolutely could not. In school, I did bad because I couldn't read and focus at all. So with medication, I can. I want to comment on this because I can, because John knows better than anybody. I have mad ADHD. If Heath is on here, he knows too. I mean, there's a couple people that know me well enough to know that I cannot do one thing at once. If you want me to focus on you, it's bad. When I brought my 5-year-old daughter in, and I've been misdiagnosed. So here's my issue. And Danielle, I'd ask you how old your son is in this instance for a couple different reasons. This is why I went to school. The first time I was diagnosed with bipolar. And it's because ADHD, especially in women, Dave, you can speak to this too if you care to, but typically has these very extreme mood swings, which is also associated with ADHD, but it is more commonly associated with women because of the hormone imbalance that we experience there, the distribution of hormones. On top of that, it's just, I had lost my mom to a drug addiction. Like there were a ton of life circumstances that were influencing and enabling even the acting out that I was experiencing. Fast forward 3-4 years, I then was diagnosed with borderline personality disorder, which I was eager to get off of my record. That one was scary to me. The first time I was diagnosed with bipolar, I was very close to your son's age. I was 11 years old. So then I was diagnosed with borderline at 16 years old. At that point, I was kicked out of the house like a year later. I was done with being labeled with things that I didn't understand, that I didn't know. There were a lot of things affecting my ability to function. I started using these labels as a crutch to justify my behavior. And I went to a psychiatrist that hadn't seen me. I sat down with him and I said, honestly, I want you to not pull my record because we're from the same part of Colorado. Don't pull my record. Please just sit down with me, hear me out, talk to me, ask me questions. I'll answer them honestly. I want an honest evaluation of what you think I'm affected by, if anything. And we'll go from there and then pull my record. Let me know what you think. We sat down for 2 hours. The appointment was supposed to be 30 minutes or 25, something like that. 2 hours he sat with me. And at the end of it, he said, you have severe ADHD, but I would not identify you with anything else other than some severe trauma that really needs attention and healing. Danielle, based on your story that we just talked about, I would very much encourage you to pay attention to the same thing. ADHD commonly masks as trauma. This is a child's inability to emotionally regulate, and here's why. Children have this closet effect of trauma, whereas adults have this river effect. This is the best analogy that I know how to use. For an adult, when trauma happens, it's like a flowing river. You can't stop it. You can't build a dam through it. Every time that you try to build a dam, the logs just get washed out. The river's flowing too hard. For a kid, it's like toys in the closet. Like when your parents tell you to clean up, you stuff it in the closet, you close the door. You stuff it in the closet, you close the door. As it gets more full, you just stuff harder and close the door faster. the children brain or the child brain has the ability to shut things away, whereas the adult brain doesn't have the same ability to ignore trauma or unresolved issues. So that has to do with the prefrontal cortex. All of that being said to say, they've told me that my daughter, who is now 5 years old, either has a high functioning form of autism or ADHD. I refuse to diagnose her with either. I refuse to treat her for either for now. I am not saying that I will not give her the tools that she needs to be treated for these things, but the way that they treat most of these things is very similar because medicine is not as developed as our understanding of human psychology. We can identify different traits associated with different psychological disorders or defects, but we cannot say that this medication is the end all be all to any of these things. And we can correct most of them with involved parenting. We can correct most of them with faith. And I'm not saying to not use medication, just for the record. Like, let it be stated for the record, that's not my recommendation whatsoever. Dave, you looked like you were going to say something. I want you to add to this.
No, I'm good. You keep going.
I just wanted to, like, I hear these parents though, like, I mean, and I take my daughter to occupational therapy because I want her to be assisted by people that understand that early childhood development. That's not my focus of education. So I want to provide her with the tools and resources that she needs based on the recommendations that they've given me for their quote unquote informal diagnosis, right? What I don't want is for them to put something on her medical record that somehow inhibits her, I don't know, like borderline personality disorder, having that on my Sydney has, that bothered me a lot. My mom was informally diagnosed with that. That's a pretty serious one. Like
I'll be back.
Yeah, please do.
I'll be back.
But borderline personality disorder, for those of you who don't know, like that's a pretty heavy label. That's not something that I was willing to walk around with, and it's not something that I was willing to abide by. John and I talk about this all the time on our podcast. For those of you who listen, the bottom line is that you are not what you are labeled. Everybody's got some sort of thorn. We just talked about this, Danielle, on your episode recently. You are not what you are labeled to. You're not limited to that, right? So, John, go ahead.
Now, I also think you should always get a second opinion. And not just go from one doctor's opinion, especially because I think some people are just, I think some diagnoses are used way too loosely, and some doctors are willing to just give a diagnosis without doing a little bit of the harder work.
Okay. No, totally agree. Will you read Sarah's comment so that I can respond to it too?
Yeah.
Sarah's first, then Danielle's.
Yeah. And Sarah said, I was misdiagnosed with depression and anxiety since I was a child. Now I'm diagnosed with ADHD and PTSD. It's like I've unlocked my brain. No wonder the antidepressants made me so much worse as a child, young adult. I won't use meds with my kiddos for his ADHD diagnosis.
Yes.
He has time and he's not in danger in any sense.
Sarah, okay, so before we move on, and Dave, if you want to reply to this too, you're more than welcome to. We were reading Sarah's comment first, so it should show up on your screen there. This is really important for people to understand, and this is a very miscommon diagnosis in general. There's a couple diagnoses in the DSM-5 that say that it's a serotonin deficiency. This is really important to understand the difference of ADHD. Thank you. You're my hero. ADHD is one of these. Borderline is another, since we referenced that. So is bipolar. These three, just to name a few, are not a serotonin deficiency. They're a dopamine deficiency. So it is very commonly misdiagnosed that people will be diagnosed with depression and prescribed what's called an SSRI. Mm-hmm. SSRIs can be extremely detrimental to people that don't suffer from a true serotonin deficiency. Knowing that your clinician has the qualifications to truly represent what your actual side effects are is really crucial. Also making sure that they start you on a very low dose so that you can try something, because I am not a psychiatrist. Okay. That's not my qualification. Medicine is not my qualification. I just know enough about this to advise you on what to tell your psychiatrist if that's what you're looking for. But dopamine is what's missing. So a lot of these people, what happens is, because SSRIs are so common, antidepressants, these mood stabilizing drugs, etc., they up your serotonin. But most of these people don't actually struggle with a serotonin deficiency. Again, they struggle with a dopamine deficiency. So we're not struggling to fill those serotonin receptors. We're struggling to fill the dopamine receptors. And again, Danielle, we just talked about this a minute ago on our most recent recording that hasn't been released yet. But because of that, we see individuals that totally 180. We have the reverse effect with these SSRIs, is they end up going off the deep end because we increased something that they were already sufficient in without increasing or balancing the dopamine levels. Dave, have you experienced something like that, something similar?
Honestly, probably not recently. When I was a clinician, basically, a lot of the prescribing, obviously, and the medication would be done with, with the doctors, the psychiatrists there. My job was basically to tell the clients to monitor their side effects, especially with new medications, and then I would refer them to the psychiatrist if there were issues. The thing that also, just dovetailing back on ADHD, the thing that always concerned me about ADHD with medication long term is that the stimulants they prescribe are extremely habit forming. And that's the other part of that. Things like Ritalin and Cylert, they're habit forming. And the other thing, you mentioned ADHD can mask trauma.
Yes.
A lot of times a child who's grieving with no prior history, let's say, of ADHD, they can exhibit symptoms that are very similar, irritability, distractibility, because of stuff that's going on in the home. So, and especially if there's been no prior history of ADHD, a child needs to be talked to see what's going on with them, either physically that may be contributing to that, or more so changing their circumstances. So the other thing that is the fact that sometimes differential diagnosis isn't done the way it should be, and people get misdiagnosed. And if they're put on the wrong meds, those meds aren't going to either work, or they're going to have, like you said, very negative effects, and very, perhaps life-altering and threatening effects. An individual who's bipolar, for example, if they're diagnosed with simply depression because they haven't been assessed for the full range of mood, and they're placed on an SSRI, they become more manic.
Mm-hmm.
And the only reason I know that is because I was working with a psychiatric nurse practitioner who told me that's how you know somebody with depression has been misdiagnosed, because you give them an SSRI, they become more manic and they're actually bipolar. So,
Big time.
medication is a big part of our world, and if individuals are going to choose that route, they need to be aware of monitoring side effects,
Mm-hmm.
and also looking at how can I build coping skills so for that I can be weaned off of the medication, my child can be weaned off of the medication. And to qualify this, there are certain people you don't want to have a non-medication management. Somebody who's schizophrenic is not going to do well.
No.
Somebody who's truly bipolar is not going to do well without meds. But meds aren't a cure-all for everything. They control symptoms, they manage symptoms, but we need to build coping skills, and that's going to help people sustain behavior change.
That's a big thing. Go ahead, John.
I want to comment on something that Danielle just said, but I'll read her previous comment first.
Yeah, go ahead. Say both.
Right. Danielle said, right. I absolutely didn't want to do it, but they really pushed it, even with my history and my worries. But part of me was wondering if they just say that to make class easier for the teachers. My son is perfectly fine at home too. It's just when he is at school. And I think we have an over what is it? Over prognosticating people as ADHD, especially kids at school. And my issue with that is that what we do is their kids learn different ways, and we push every kid to learn the same way in the school day. Like we don't give for the person who may be more of a hands-on learner, right? We take, have you heard what I said, Sydney, or no? We take kids who may need the more hands-on learning, and we sit them at a desk and we tell them that they have to sit there and sit still, when that's not the way they learn. So what do you expect them to do but act out, right? And
Yeah.
and so I think people get over prescribed as being ADHD because we've taken all these different types of learning skills and we force everybody to learn the same way in an 8-hour period.
Oh.
For me, listen, I was extremely smart. I cut 30 days in a row twice in my high school thing, and it was more because I was bored. I was bored. You know, I wasn't being challenged. I need to be challenged. Like in my work history, I usually last a job at 5 years because I've learned everything I possibly can learn. And I need to be challenged. I need to, like, if I'm just doing the same thing every day, you know, I'm bored. I want to learn. I want to do better.
Okay, wait a minute. There's a really crucial reason for this. Can I point this out real quick?
Go ahead.
Kids that have, Danielle, this applies to you. It applies to me. It applies to most kids that have ADHD. And I wish that this was studied more frequently. The reason that it's not is because it requires accountability. I'm just going to put that out there right now. There has been a 67% increase over the last 2 decades in ADHD diagnoses. Why? Because ADHD is a trauma response. Attention deficit disorder means that I am more focused on my surroundings than the direct information that I'm consuming. It means that my nervous system is not focused on what an individual is saying. It means that I am focused on the surroundings of my environment in order to tell me how my body should react to the information that I am consuming. So when she said, where did her comment go? He said, I think that I'm just bored. Okay, that.
No, I said that.
No. She said that. She said, I think that he was just bored. This is an ADHD thing, is boredom. Okay. This is prevalent in ADHD relationships too. I can say that because I have that diagnosis of ADHD, and I get bored as F in relationships. The reason for that is because normality feels like stress to me. My nervous system, and people with ADHD, their nervous system has been trained to respond to stimulus. So if there's not a fight going on, if there's not something going on outside of my own personnel, I don't know how to respond to that. And so dysfunctional families, this is so important. Dysfunctional families breed children with a diagnosis of ADHD that we treat with ADHD medication. It doesn't mean that it's not reversible. A lot of people think that ADHD is not reversible. Yes, this is a biochemical engineering, okay? We talked about this too. There are genetic components to ADHD. I'm not saying that it's not a genetic disorder, but what I am saying is that we've got this nature versus nurture concept. And if somebody is born with something, their environment influences whether that genetic component is continuously bred or if it's nurtured in reverse. We get to choose as parents how we nurture, like nature versus nurture, the genetic cards that we're dealt. No, we can't control genes. That's a fact outside of mRNA. Not going to get into that, totally different topic. But what I will get into is that when we have a child, the stimulus that we surround that child with affects the way that that child continues to develop neurologically, with the way that their neurons are firing at a way impactful rate for the first 5 years of their life. Dave has thoughts. I know he has thoughts. I can hear them basically. Like they're just radiating out.
Well, I mean, I have many thoughts, Sydney. You know, some not related to the show, but I do have many thoughts. I mean, one of the things that immediately when I saw Danielle's comment, my son is perfectly fine at home, but it's just when he's at school. I mean, kids display different behaviors depending on the situation. I mean, you're going to get a true accurate read on a kid. Just throwing ADHD out of the mix for a minute. You try to observe them at home or observe them at school, and you observe them at play. I mean, they exhibit three different things. But I think if he's fine at home, and it's what's at school, what's going on at school. I mean, obviously, it's either that's causing him to be overstimulated or is causing him to, experience that type of change. Is there anything going on at school? Is he being bullied? I'm not saying, Danielle is, but those are things I would probably look at too, as far as situationally what's going on in that environment that's making his behavior different, outside of looking at any ADHD diagnosis. And if he's overstimulated, yeah, he's going to act out. I mean, that's either, I think that's going to happen because it's probably a source of stress and for him, and he's going to act out and show that stress.
Yeah.
So I do have a question. We do have to bring this to a close, but I wonder, like, us as human beings, are these things that we're going through a cause of our own demise? And what do I mean by that is that, if we go back to the way humans first began, they were hunters, gatherers, they weren't overly stimulated. We've created all of our problems,
Yeah.
And that's what I mean. Our own demise. I don't know that we were ever designed to sit 8 hours in a schoolroom, in a classroom.
No.
No.
And I guess that's my question is like, is this just a problem that we've created ourselves,
Yeah, I think for me, and if I'm going to jump in, if this is okay, because as a teacher, basically, if we can't, we have to teach how students learn, and a lot of times students. I mean, we have 50 to 75 minute classes, and my students, even though they might be enamored with my lectures, in my discussion, they can't focus for 50 or 75 minutes. So I have to find different ways to keep them engaged. Not with traditional lecture, it's with maybe discussion questions, small group activities, hands-on stuff to keep them engaged, because we're dealing, with the fact that kids just don't learn one way. Back in the day, you could sit through a lecture, take notes. It's not like that anymore. And whether it's a response of, just a product of the issues that kids are going through today, a product of a variety of different things, we have to be receptive to that. Most students that I know can have difficulty focusing for 50 to 75 minutes just because of, maybe the classroom isn't stimulated, the lecture piece isn't stimulating enough for them, or they got some other stuff going on in their life. So we got to find some different ways to keep them engaged. And it's just common sense. You can't fit a square peg into a round hole. You can try, but it ain't going to work. So, you gotta, and I think we can create our own messes because we're very rigid in the way we think about how learning should be or how anything should go. And it's basically being responsive to how does this kid learn, and what can we do to reach that, and how do we reach a classroom that may learn differently than another. It's being flexible and responsive to their needs. So I'm done now.
No, that was good. It was important. John, did you have something to say? I was ready for it.
No, I'm good.
See, I'm getting older, so I got to speak up before I forget, you know?
It's Danielle's comment about being able to not sit still and focus. This is a really, really common complaint of parents based on teacher verbiage. It's not based on parent verbiage because they're not with us from like 8 a.m. to 3 p.m., right? So we miss this whole chapter of their lives based on school hours. That's the first thing that we have to recognize as parents is we're not present for this. This is the training of teachers is this XYZ is considered abnormal behavior. This is when we report it to parents, right? So being able to, or not being able rather to sit still and focus is not a reflection of a dysfunction. It's a reflection of a trauma response. It's a reflection of, I'm not familiar with peace in the environment. So other kids complying to regulation set by a teacher or a care provider at any given situation. 8th grade is young. I think that's what, 2nd, 3rd grade, something like that. Maybe it's not 4th. It can't be 4th. But anyways, like all of those age groups, we're talking about a body of kids that is told, okay, time to sit down. This is what we're doing. And kids that have been taught to comply to something like that are familiar with this type of obedience regulation from authority figures. Kids that have grown up in environments that are emotionally irregulated or unstable from the parents or caretakers will not respond to this type of environment. And as a matter of fact, it will make them uncomfortable. We diagnose this as a society as something with ADHD, and we treat them with ADHD medication. Let me ask you something, though. Do you think that ADHD originated because of true attention deficit disorder, or do you think that we started to see dysfunctional parents and authoritarian/authoritative, like authoritative by design? Okay, I'm not going to say authoritarian. I'm not talking about the type of authority in the child's life. I'm talking about the type of designated authority in the child's life. ADHD didn't originate from nowhere, is what I'm getting at. So what I'm saying is that kids didn't come up with this behavior. They were taught this type of behavior. When they witness this type of behavior, it's called, Dave, what's the word? Remind me. Grooving, neuron grooving. So this is when neuron pathways form in your brain, and we have the brain fire and receive on multiple different neuron connections. And we are trained before school age in the most formative years of a child's life that this is how behavior is expressed and witnessed. So then we have children act in the same ways. Mm-hmm. When you raise your child in a chaotic household, I don't care how old they are, between the ages of 1 to 5 specifically, and it decreases slightly after age 5, but I'm not going to say that it goes away because it doesn't. It just decreases. Like 1 through 5 is when psychology has recognized, okay, this is when we have the peak of neuron connections forming. We're learning language. We're learning behavior. We're learning signals. We're learning emotional messaging. Like there's a plethora of things that happen during these formative ages that if I express based on what I have witnessed from my mom and my dad or whoever it is that's taking care of me, I get my needs met. That's what's really crucial in recognizing that. So Danielle and Sarah and everybody else that's listening, the reason that I say that is because it's really important to recognize as adults that ADHD didn't go up 67% in diagnosis over the last 2 decades for no damn reason. We have a body of individuals that was never diagnosed with anything, that don't need to be, might I add, okay, that are now raising generations of children that don't know how to regulate their emotions. This is attributed to divorce rates being at 50% or over at this point in time. We see children that witness emotional volatility, whether it's from their parents, the parental figures that are raising them, their daycare providers, it doesn't really matter. Whoever they're exposed to for long hours of the day, our children are exposed to them for that period of time. And then we expect them to not demonstrate that same emotional irregularity. We see that in school when they're confined for 8+ hours a day, expected to sit still and learn some form of a lesson that's subscribed to them by the state.
Agree.
That was a very simple answer, and I don't approve. I need more thoughts than that. That was too simple for me. We've got comments. What do we have? It went up, so you're gonna have to scroll.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
I can't scroll on my own.
So Daniel was like, very true. He's in 2nd grade. He said, I am a firm believer that the real world is the best teacher. For many reasons, the sitting still is mental. Activation is greater in the real world. I believe it would help the transition to adulthood easier. School and caretakers often lead to more anxiety, causing many other issues to overcome as they grow older. And then Danielle said, right, my house is chaotic. LOL, 4 kids and the trauma he's been through.
People use a diagnosis, parents specifically. Let's, as parents, start agreeing to take accountability for whatever symptoms our children are experiencing, because there is a genetic component that happens in the womb. But let's really talk about the fact that this starts at conception. 1, your child starts receiving these signals as early as in the womb. That's been scientifically proven. We don't have to argue about that. But 2, it starts with the environment that you choose to raise your child in. So if you then start blaming the child's behavior and expecting medication to be the silver bullet, you're the problem, not your kid. And I mean that in the most genuine sense. I really do. Like, my dad did the same thing. I've had parents do the same thing. I have clients do the same thing on a regular basis. And I mean that in the most genuine sense. You are the problem. If you see the behavior that your child is witnessing and you know that there was an unstable environment, that there's toxicity in a relationship or abuse happening, and you're choosing to medicate your child, over teach your child emotional regularity, over teaching your child spirituality, over whatever it is, and you want medication to be the silver bullet, you're the issue.
Yeah, and medication has never been a silver bullet. I've said that earlier in the podcast. It never has been, and particularly, and kids are also going to imitate what they see at home, especially if they're nonverbal. Then they're gonna take that unless that narrative is changed, because early experience does matter in terms of, what impact it has on kids moving forward and as they grow older. But yeah, I think it's important for, and look, when I married the love of my life, didn't make me a great parent. I had to learn how to fly. And, I think I'm a pretty good parent now, but boy, there was a learning curve.
Big time.
And I came from, I had my own share of trauma, but I had a lot of love from a mom who raised me. And, but there's a different set of skills when it comes to being a parent than it comes to being lovers and being husband and wife. It's like you promote a counselor to a clinical supervisor. Great counselors sometimes make shitty clinical supervisors because they don't have the same skill set.
Yeah.
And good people don't make good parents. And I'm not saying that negatively. It's just we weren't born with those innate skills to be parents, and it takes a lot now, particularly in a very complicated world, to provide to provide a nurturing, and to provide a very structured and consistent environment. It's tough now, and we're not born with those skills. So
Yeah, and if you know me from this podcast, you know that my feeling on medication is that unless it's life-threatening, it should only be something to assist something, not solve an issue. You need to go to root causes. and your goal should always be the root cause, not, you know, not trying to take care of some symptoms and
Yep.
acting out as a symptom. It's not the problem.
Well, that's,
Um,
yeah. Oh, sorry, John, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, go ahead. You're good.
No, that's the basis for functional medicine now. Is functional medicine looks at root cause. They don't just treat symptoms. And I think if you look at root cause, you can have a more targeted, intervention plan to treat those symptoms. So, and I think it's the root cause analysis sometimes gets lost in the shuffle. So,
Yeah, I'm not against an assist every once in a while, but I definitely don't think that medication should be our first go-to.
no,
Mhm.
well, I said,
Daniel,
yeah. So,
sorry, Daniel said, well, I needed to hear this whole episode. Thank you, Sydney, for having me jump in. That's what I love about the Monday Happy Hour. This is your guys' show. Like, we love doing the podcast. We love sitting down, talking to people like Dave, getting to hear the stories, getting to dive deep into topics. But we also like our Monday Happy Hour to bring it back to you guys so that you guys can ask the questions you want to ask, so you guys can interact, so you guys can get to know.
Well, as we conclude, like if you've got any concluding thoughts real quick, Danielle, specifically since you're still on here, like if you've got any questions that you want to ask or anybody else regarding, the occupational therapy, the ADHD, like any of that, please throw it in the chat real quick while we have Dave on.
Yeah, and remember that we're here every Monday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Share this. Share the live. Share the Monday Happy Hours. The more people we have discussing, the better the conversations will be. As you saw tonight, we had a lot of interaction with the guests for the game. So I want all this to grow and become bigger and have a lot of fun. So while we're waiting to see if anybody has any concluding thoughts from the commenters, Dave, do you have any concluding thoughts?
the only thing that came into mind was that this is kind of foolish and dumb, but kind of this what came into my head. So if you want to hear it, it's kind of like primary process. But so for some reason, I kept thinking of the old Aereo Speedwagon album titles. You can tune a piano, but you can't tune a fish. Now, I don't know where that falls in with everything, but, I have, maybe it's just kind of recognizing what our strengths are, what our limitations are, working from within our strengths. That's just kind of what came into my head today.
Awesome. And Danielle says, I just didn't like it was pushed on my son. And I agree. I wish this was another way. I just don't know what to do about him in school because I'm not there to help him.
See, and that's the thing that we as parents, and then like I totally understand because I deal with that even with occupational therapy with my daughter. Like, we have to be able to know how to advocate for our kids. And this is something that I think a lot of parents struggle with. So this is no hit on you, Danielle, whatsoever. Just in general, we will deal with licensed providers, especially from mega organizations or organizations significantly larger than, say, small family practices, where we have to learn how to ask the right questions rather than accept the information, right? Because there is no one, and I needed somebody to tell me this about me and about my child more than anything in the world. There is no one that knows you or your child better than you. And that is what you need to hold very closely, especially as a mother or single fathers or fathers that are very involved. I say that not to eliminate the fathers that work full time and provide for, their family. I only say that to, the families that I am the one that takes my daughter to occupational therapy. I am the one that has the educational background, and it's something that I experience on a regular basis. But Danielle, specifically, since you're in here, you need to trust your gut as a mother and say, listen, I've got more questions and I'm not sure what they are right now, but like, I'm not comfortable with this at this point in time. And that's what I had to do because they wanted to diagnose my daughter with autism. My daughter is not autistic. Like on everything that I own, on everything that I have, my daughter's not autistic. She may have some ADHD tendencies, but she's not autistic. They wanted to put that on her medical record. And I just said, no, like hard, no, that's not what we're doing here. I have more questions. I need to get more information. Fast forward 18 months later, and they were like, I think that she has severe ADHD. And that's what it took. But like, it takes somebody in your circle or yourself having that information to know how to articulate for that.
Yep.
So that's important. And not all of us have that readily accessible. So Danielle, now you've got me. Now you have Dave. Add him. And you obviously have me already. Reach out to me if you need anything. Reach out to Dave. Like he's got lots of practice in this too. There's nobody here that wants to propagate any specific agenda. It's just that like genuinely wanting what's in the best interest of the child without influence of modern psychology, because it's not about what the most recent version of the DSM says. It's about what's actually best for my kid. I think that there's very few people that genuinely look at that from a heart perspective. And it takes somebody, I'm going to say this because it's Dave on our podcast, and this is crucial. It takes somebody that has lost that to know that. Dave has lost that. I have lost that. And that type of loss completely redirects as if it wasn't before. Like you think as a parent that's present and involved with your kids' lives that you can say, I'm involved, I care. And you do. I'm not saying that you don't, but then you lose that same child, and it takes that level of care and appreciation for that precious individual that you have had. It takes it to a new level. It really does, because I have 2 children that I am blessed to raise in my home, and I have one that I've lost. And Dave has had the same type of pain, and I urge anybody who's listening to go to our episode that we're releasing tomorrow and listen to that to understand the full scope of that.
You can find that on the Common Ground Project USA on YouTube and Spotify and Apple, the Common Ground Podcast.
Not sponsored by John Philly above, but like,
But don't call me.
Don't call me late for dinner, he says.
Never
call him late for dinner. It's true though. I mean, when you're a parent that has lost it's not influenced. It's not influenced is what I'm trying to say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it certainly changes the way you look at things, and it certainly just redirects your passion that you have for your surviving children.
Yes, it does.
And your opinion matters. So don't let them make you feel like your voice is less because you're not there. You're the parent. Your matters.
Yeah,
you have a say.
Yeah. And we need to be our own best advocates. We need to, because we know our children better than anybody.
Exactly.
So.
All right. Well, we have gone way over because Dave is one of the most educated and fascinating guests that we have had on the Common Ground podcast.
Well, I will take that as a very supreme compliment, because I know you've had a lot of fascinating guests on your podcast.
It's something to say coming from you. You're on what episode?
Episode 30, I think. Is what John said?
See, yeah. Pretty good. Well, for us,
John, for us, he's 30.
I'm talking about you. You've got a podcast.
Yeah, I've released 219 episodes.
Okay, that's kind of what I was talking about. We're a little bit of a baby compared to you. Like, we've got an expert in our presence. For those of you who don't know, Dave, what's the name of your podcast?
The Teaching Journeys Podcast. You can find that on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, anywhere podcasts are you can, your favorite podcast, by wherever podcasts are aired, you can find me.
Yeah, you can find him on all of the things he just mentioned. He's very experienced, far past the maturity of John and I, because we're just wee babbies and we're just working it out as we go. But we have the honor and honor and respect of being in the presence of ours truly, the famous Dave, since that was our game today, the famous Dave.
Yeah, well, John didn't do anything to nothing about me. It was all about other Daves. You know what I mean?
John, what is I'm gone for 5 minutes and you don't introduce Dave as the famous Dave?
No.
I'm just
He's
kidding.
here.
I'm totally
How,
kidding.
how much more famous can he be? He's here.
That's true.
This
I'm on the Common Ground podcast, man. I mean, that's hallowed ground. I'm much more famous can I be?
elite at this point.
You got it.
Yeah.
You think we just have anybody on this podcast?
No,
We only have
I,
the best of the best.
I know you have a screening process that you go through. I've been through it.
I'm the screening process.
Yes, you are. Yeah, nothing. The fact that I passed muster with Sydney
This
is always a good thing.
honored indeed.
Well, thank you, Sydney. It's great. I'm honored to be in your guys' presence. You do some great stuff.
Good to see you again. And
It's always-
excited to be on your podcast. Danielle, everybody else who has joined, thank you so much for being here today. Thank you for your presence on our Monday happy hour.
Oh, you're welcome, and thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
And remember, when we take the time to hear somebody's story, it gives us the opportunity to find common ground. Thank you again, Dave, for being our special guest on the Monday Happy Hour.
Thanks for having me.
For Sydney and myself, it has been our pleasure to be your host, and you have been watching the Monday Happy Hour. Good night, and God bless.
Good night.